Every year, businesses that cannot account for their carbon emissions risk losing major contracts because right now, large corporations are legally required to know the carbon footprint of their entire supply chain, including their smaller suppliers. If your company cannot provide that data, you may simply be left out. I am Teresa, and today we are going to explore carbon emissions and energy management for small and medium enterprises. We will move through 3 practical stages: learn, measure, and act, so you can confidently track and reduce your emissions. Let us get started. Greenhouse gases are gases present in Earth's atmosphere that trap outgoing heat radiation, keeping our planet warm enough to support life. Think of them like a blanket around the Earth. A thin blanket is essential, but keep piling on more layers and things get dangerously overheated. There are 7 key greenhouse gases recognized under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, sulfur hexafluoride, and nitrogen trifluoride. Each has a different global warming potential, or GWP, which tells us how powerfully that gas traps heat compared to carbon dioxide over the same time period. Carbon dioxide is the baseline, with a GWP of 1, while some industrial gases, like sulfur hexafluoride, have a GWP thousands of times higher, meaning even tiny quantities cause significant warming. From an engineering and business perspective, this matters enormously. Rising greenhouse gas concentrations intensify extreme weather events, severe heat waves, flooding, stronger storms, which directly threaten infrastructure, agriculture, and supply chains. For any engineer working in energy systems or facilities management, understanding these gases and their warming potential is the foundation for making informed decisions about emissions reduction and energy management strategies. Singapore sits at the intersection of global climate commitments and concrete policy action, and understanding this context is essential for any engineer working in industry today. The Paris Agreement set the international benchmark, limiting warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. Singapore, despite contributing only 0.1% of global emissions, is legally bound by this and has committed to net zero by 2050, with interim targets cutting emissions to around 45 to 50 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2035. Now, here is where it gets directly relevant to engineering practice. Singapore's carbon tax started at just 5 Singapore dollars per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent during the transitional years of 2019 to 2023. It jumped sharply to $25 in 2024 and is heading toward $45 by 2026 to 2027, with a target range of $50 to $80 by 2030. Think of this like a progressive fuel surcharge. The longer you delay efficiency improvements, the more expensive operations become. The tax covers roughly 70% of total greenhouse gas emissions, targeting large industrial emitters directly. But SMEs feel it indirectly through rising electricity costs and raw material prices. And with mandatory ISSB climate reporting coming in phases, SMEs supplying larger companies will increasingly need to track and report their own emissions data. This is no longer just a compliance issue for big corporations. It flows through entire supply chains. Proper energy and emissions management is not just about environmental responsibility. It directly impacts a company's bottom line and long-term viability. Let us walk through the 4 key benefits here. First, cost reduction. When businesses consume less energy, they spend less on utilities and face lower greenhouse gas-related charges. That translates directly into improved profit margins. Second, investor attraction. Sustainability-conscious investors actively seek companies with strong energy efficiency credentials and low carbon footprints. A well-managed emissions profile signals responsible governance. Third, sustainable financing. This is an increasingly important one. Companies meeting energy and emissions targets can access sustainability-linked bonds and loans, which typically offer more favorable interest rates. It is essentially the financial market rewarding good environmental performance. Finally, transition risk management. Regulations around carbon emissions are tightening globally. Businesses that proactively reduce their greenhouse gas emissions are far less exposed to sudden regulatory changes, market disruptions, or shifting consumer preferences. They build operational resilience before problems arise, rather than scrambling to react afterward. Taken together, these benefits reinforce why energy and emissions management belongs in core business strategy, not just in an environmental department. Engineering decisions at the operational level have real, measurable financial and strategic consequences, and that is exactly the kind of thinking we want you to develop. Now we are moving into the measure stage. This is where you actually build your greenhouse gas inventory, sometimes called your carbon footprint. Think of it like a financial audit, but instead of tracking money, you are tracking emissions across your entire organization. You follow the GHG protocol, which is the most widely referenced standard globally, also aligned with ISO 14064. Step 1 is setting your organizational boundary. You have two approaches. The equity share approach means you account for emissions proportionate to how much of a company you own. The control approach means you account for everything your company has financial or operational control over. If your company does not fully own all its operations, operational control is generally the preferred choice because it directly ties to what you can actually manage and change. Step 2 is identifying your base year. This is your reference starting point. It should be recent, representative of normal operations, and backed by reliable data. You measure all future progress against this baseline, so choosing it carefully really matters. Step 3 is identifying your emission sources across 3 scopes. Scope 1 covers direct emissions from your own facilities, vehicles, and on-site combustion. Scope 2 covers indirect emissions from purchased electricity and heat. Scope 3 covers everything else across your upstream and downstream value chain. A practical tip here, start with scopes 1 and 2 first. Get comfortable with those, then expand to scope 3. And make sure you are capturing activities that represent at least 95% of your total carbon footprint before moving toward complete coverage. Now we get into the actual calculation work, collecting your activity data and applying emission factors to get real numbers. The core formula is straightforward. GHG emissions equals activity data multiplied by an emission factor. Think of it like calculating your electricity bill. You multiply the units consumed by the rate per unit. Same logic here, just measuring carbon instead of dollars. For Scope 1, you are working with direct combustion sources, like diesel or natural gas. You gather consumption records, fuel receipts, meter readings, and multiply by the appropriate emission factor. For Singapore-based companies, especially those liable under the carbon tax, you use default emission factors published by NEA, which are grounded in IPCC methodology. The Singapore Emissions Factors Registry also gives you over 200 factors across different activities. For Scope 2, covering purchased electricity, there are 2 accepted approaches. Location-based uses the grid emission factor from the Energy Market Authority, which reflects the average carbon intensity of Singapore's power grid. Market-based uses factors from contractual instruments, like power purchase agreements or renewable energy certificates, which matters if your company has made specific renewable energy commitments. Scope 3 is the most complex because it spans your entire value chain. Business travel, supplier emissions, product transport, waste disposal. The GHG protocol provides technical guidance specifically for this scope. 2 free tools worth knowing. Gprint, launched by MAS, integrates directly with government databases, and netzerohub.sg offers a carbon calculator directory supported by the Singapore Business Federation. Now we move into the action stage, setting sustainability targets. This is where intentions become commitments, and commitments drive real engineering and operational decisions. Let us start with absolute targets. An absolute emissions target commits an organization to reducing its total greenhouse gas emissions by a fixed amount in tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by a specific date, measured against a base year. Notice that this does not adjust for how much the business grows or shrinks. It is a hard number, regardless of scale. Science-based targets go a step further. These are aligned with what climate science says is actually required to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, in line with the Paris Agreement. Organizations can use the Science Based Targets Initiative framework to validate their targets. Net zero targets are the most ambitious. The goal is to reduce Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions down to 0, or a residual level consistent with 1.5 degree scenarios, and then neutralize whatever remains through carbon capture or removal, not just offsetting. Carbon neutral targets allow remaining emissions to be compensated using carbon credits. They are less ambitious than net zero because offsetting does not require the same depth of actual reduction. Now for intensity targets. Emissions intensity is calculated as total emissions divided by a business activity indicator, such as revenue, gross floor area, or units produced. This measures efficiency relative to output, which is useful for comparing performance across organizations of different sizes. Energy efficiency targets work similarly, using specific energy consumption, total energy used per unit of production output. When setting your own targets, always benchmark against industry leaders, national benchmarks, and mandatory sector requirements. When businesses are unclear about where energy is being wasted, an energy audit is the logical starting point. Conducted by qualified auditors, it systematically examines your organization's consumption patterns and efficiency levels. Think of it like a full medical checkup, but for your building or facility's energy health. The audit produces a detailed roadmap identifying exactly where inefficiencies exist and what improvements are commercially viable. Beyond the audit, organizations implement an energy management system, or NMS, which is a structured framework of policies, procedures, and tools designed to continuously optimize energy performance. Key components include an energy policy, clearly defined roles and responsibilities, documented processes, staff training, and regular management reviews. This is not a one-time exercise. It is an ongoing operational commitment. Supporting this is the Energy Management Information System, or EMIS, which automates data collection for significant energy uses. It enables real-time tracking, generates alerts, and produces reports that allow engineers and managers to make informed decisions efficiently. The governing standard here is SS-ISO 50001:2018, Singapore's adopted international standard for energy management systems. Together, the audit and EMS give organizations both the diagnostic insight and the operational structure needed to meaningfully reduce carbon emissions and long-term energy costs. Now we are looking at the action stage, the practical improvements companies can make to reduce both their direct and indirect emissions. For Scope 1, direct emissions, stationary combustion sources like furnaces and boilers can be improved by switching to cleaner fuels, such as liquefied petroleum gas or natural gas, or even transitioning fully to electric equipment. Operationally, regularly checking air-fuel ratios and keeping heat transfer surfaces clean are simple but high-impact habits. For mobile combustion, the shift toward hybrid or electric vehicles is a clear equipment upgrade, while route optimization cuts fuel use without any hardware changes at all. Refrigerants are often overlooked. Switching to lower global warming potential refrigerants and actively monitoring for leaks can significantly reduce those hidden emissions. For Scope 2, indirect emissions, which come from purchased electricity, the opportunities are broad. In HVAC, non-compressor cooling systems can save more than 10 kilowatt-hours per square meter per year. High-efficiency motors with variable speed drives match power output precisely to load, avoiding wasteful overrunning. LED lighting upgrades consistently deliver strong savings, and rooftop solar photovoltaic systems now offer a levelized cost of electricity between 11 and 15 Singapore cents per kilowatt-hour, which is typically competitive against the regulated grid tariff. Each of these measures reduces energy consumption, lowers emissions, and in most cases, directly reduces operating costs. We have reached the final stage of the Energy Management Cycle Act. After setting targets and implementing your reduction strategies, this stage is about measuring whether your efforts are actually working and making smarter decisions based on real data. You track 3 key performance indicators. First, absolute emissions, which is your total carbon output compared to your base year. Second, emissions intensity, which measures emissions relative to your output or activity level, useful because it accounts for business growth. The formulas here are percentage change calculations. Current value minus base year value, divided by base year value, multiplied by 100%. A negative result means improvement. Your emissions are going down. Think of it like a fitness tracker. You monitor your weight, but also your fitness level relative to how active you have been. Both tell you something different about your health. Beyond tracking numbers, you need to identify which initiatives are delivering the biggest impact and scale those up. Where performance is falling short, you adjust your resources, timelines, or approach. Critically, management and stakeholders must be kept informed throughout. Transparent reporting builds accountability and keeps the organization committed to its targets. This is not a one-time exercise. It is a continuous improvement loop. And so we reach the end of our journey together. We covered 3 interconnected stages: learning the fundamentals of greenhouse gases and carbon policy, measuring your organizational footprint using Scope 1, 2, and 3 frameworks, and taking structured action through energy audits, targets, and grants. These are not just academic concepts. Engineers and sustainability managers apply exactly this roadmap in real workplaces every day. You now have the knowledge to contribute meaningfully to that work. Trust the process, start small, and build from there. Once again, this is Teresa. Thank you for watching.